So this meeting will be recorded, at least for the first part, and then in the discussion part, we will see if we'll record that as well. So without further ado, I hand that over to Gillian and Stefania to present their work. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Can you see? Oh, I just tried to put myself. Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. As Parafan just introduced us, this is an interdisciplinary research project with the Institute for Transport Studies with Gillian and with the Leeds University Business School with me. So we are going to tell you a lot of the story about this research project and some preliminary success that we have had through working together. As you can notice, we are from two different schools and we've been learning a lot. We wanted to test a new methodology. We wanted to test how those methodology could work together. And our project is entitled Group Modeling, Building and Lego Serious Play. And what we really wanted to do is to understand how those methodologies combined together could have addressed some research questions related to transport identities and innovation. Can we go to the next slide, please? Okay, so what are we going to do is tell you the story of our project. We're going to introduce what is it, why we have done, how we have done, and then we introduce the literature for both methodology from the Lego Serious Plays and the Causal loop diagrams, and we try to share with you our key funding from a workshop that we have organized, and we intentionally waited for the pandemic to be shifted in another stage, because this kind of methodologies could have been done by online settings, but the result could have been different. So we waited for our in-person workshops, and we're going to share with you the outputs from this workshop and our key conclusions. And we also want to share with you something about the process, because we encourage you to experience an interdisciplinary research, but we also had some sort of challenges, and we want to share with you how we overcome them. And finally, what we have learned from each other. And I would like to share that we really enjoy working together and learn those methodologies and their impact on our practice. Can we move to the next one, please? Okay, so how it started and what was it? So Gillian and I applied for a Crucible, the Leeds Crucible scheme, and in I think it was September 2019, and we worked together for 3 days with other colleagues. So this project actually started with 5 people from different schools. And we were tested some questions about migrations and transport identities and migrations, because if we had presented a project, this project could have been funded by the university. And this project changed. And now the aim of our project is to develop an innovative and interdisciplinary methodological approach that blends research methods and participatory modeling to enrich individual awareness in transport identity. So what is it? We try to understand how people perceive and what are their awareness about transport. And the way that we've been tested is through the combination of this methodology. I would like to remind you that this was a proof of concept project, so we would like to continue and to gather more data. Next one, please. So what we did, why did we do? As you can see from these photographs, that's what, when we apply for the funding, we have to tick 3 criteria. So the project should have been interdisciplinary. So at least 2 different disciplines that have to be worked together, and 2 different research methodologies that had to work together. And then the project had to be innovative. So we had a lot of conversation about what innovation was. And, innovation, is, as you well know, is essential for any sectors. However, it's a very trendy term that means so many different things. So we have to try to find a common ground to explore those methodologies. And so there was innovation, innovative was one factor, and then there was a sustainability. So we decided the sector to explore was transport. That is one of the largest sector in the UK. And mobility and accessibility are quite fundamental to the quality of life, and they contribute to social inequity. So we really wanted to understand how, this could have been seen through a relationship with migration. But then COVID happened, and so we have to change it completely. So what we did was try to slightly change our research questions, and we ended up to research on does understanding of our individual transport identities allow us to be more innovative in our transport choices, and how the disruption in our mobility behaviors caused by the COVID-19 changed our transport identity. So we immediately tried to bring this COVID-19 dimension in our project, and we shift from the migration to more like our identities in terms of innovations in our thinking to use different transport choices. Next one, please. So one of the most interesting parts of our research experience was to try to find common ground between those methodology. They are completely different. So we were having a lot of conversations about, we introduced to ourselves what the Lego Serious Place was and what the causal loop diagrams was. And Gillian and I, we met several times. At the same time, the other colleagues from the School of Medics and the School of Education decided that they didn't want to continue this project. So as you probably can imagine, we were a little bit disappointed, and we had to change again. But we always wanted to have an holistic approach, and we always wanted to learn the different approaches. We really kept our motivation going. And even if our colleagues, unfortunately, they decided not to be part of this project, Gillian and I, we continue. So again, we started to continue to have those conversations about, okay, what do we want to do, and why does methodology can help us to address the research questions, and how we can find, how can we experiment them, both of them. We are going to tell you in a few minutes which are the characteristics of those methodology, and now they helped us to enrich our understanding. Please, next slide. So the literature we've been using to address the question were mainly two, and what we really wanted to do is to give a sense of equal partnership between those literatures. So from Gillian expertise, we were looking at the transport identity. We tried to figure it out, which were the gap, which was the limited research that has been conducted in transport identity, as Heinen in 2016 stated. We try to understand in terms of transport identity, what are the preferred modes of transport and what could be the link to behavior change. And the more Gillian was explaining those literature in terms of transport identity, the more we were trying to figure it out in terms of innovation, how behavior change could have impact innovation, which type of innovation, radical innovation, disruptive innovation, incremental innovation, in order to make very feasible the data that we were going to have collected later on in the next stage. In terms of transport identity, we figured out that there is a strong link between attitudinal theories used to understand travel behaviors, and a social identity has been linked to some sort of commuting through the people. So again, this way to research and sharing the literature enable us to craft and to get more focus on our research questions, and most importantly, to apply those concepts with the methodology that we were trying to test and to combine together. And finally, we figured it out that mobility biographies are how travel behaviors changes over a life course. So again, we were quite excited, but we also started to figure it out that we have to take a step-by-step approach. At the same time, we were exploring from the innovation theory, just a particular area of it. We decided to understand what was the link between these behavior changes and the previous behaviors. And the imprinting theory helped us to find the link. According to the imprinting theory, people behave or understand a particular situation according to the past, according to the previous experiences. And the more experiences they have, they create and enables individuals to make a change or to change decisions about the future behaviors. So we really enjoyed to try to mix these, future behavior, travel behaviors to the past behaviors or present behaviors. And according to the innovation theory, all those decisions in terms of behaviors are imprinted subconsciously in our mindset. So I want to give you an example. We think we are taking the decision for us according to our knowledge of today, but unconsciously, we still have some imprinting decision-making process. And that's why people make one decision or another. And this is important for the Lego serious play, because the Lego serious plays try to bring some connections with the unconscious. And we wanted to have this because we really wanted to understand the process of making decisions in terms of travel, identities, and behaviors. Can we do the next slide, please? And what we've been doing is this. As you can see, this image of Isis, everybody, since we were a child, since we were children, we observe the world, we observe sculptures, we observe paintings. And what is interesting about this Lego serious plays is the combination, is bringing artifacts and storytelling that we always been doing. I mean, do you remember when you went to a museum and someone was explaining you a story about a particular artifact? And this is the basic for the Lego serious play. The Lego serious plays try to combine what we always been doing it, but in a much more reflective and calm and quiet and empowering stage. What the Lego serious plays is based on the combination of using both sides of the brain. From Cheez-Its and Milai, we can use the creative zone, to go to explore originality, to create something. But at the same time, most people, when we try to be creative, and everybody can be creative, we can have a sort of feelings, and the feelings can be of anxiety or boredom, and this can really kill learning. So the Lego serious plays try to combine those two and try to change the feelings of anxiety or boredom in a much more active way to be creative and to keep learning. So next slide, please. The Lego serious play is I don't know if you are familiar with this methodology. So we are going to illustrate a bit of history of it, why we selected and how this helped us. So the Lego serious play has been used a lot in management, in consultancy, in research projects, in order to solve problems, explore ideas, and achieve objectives in the business world and in research. And it is the Lego serious plays has been used with a lot of research technique in terms of education, counseling, innovation, and is mainly based on three key concepts. Constructivism means that the learner from Piaget The constructivist approach is based around the idea that learners are active participants in their learning journey. Knowledge is built on the experience. So even if, for example, if you are silent or if you're quiet, you still, according to the constructivism approach, you're still part of active of your learning to make sense, to, you know, connected to your knowledge and experiences. And learners develop schemas to organize and acquire knowledge. According to Ariel and Papert, constructivism is how step by step the learner builds the knowledge. And that's really important. And we will share with Gillian in a moment why we had to do a particular way of asking the questions and using this step-by-step approach. I need to tell you that many academics have used and abused the Lego serious play, but this Lego serious play was set it up probably in 2010, and it was part of the guy on the left, Rasmussen, who used to be the head of innovation of the Lego company. And what happened, the idea of the method was to use a playful approach in rethinking strategy and leadership that was really created 20 years ago. But there were some challenges, because obviously they wanted to keep this, step-by-step approach, build knowledge and understanding, and that this requires a lot of time. Just to talk a little bit about our project, Gillian and I, we have to go through the process and to experience this before we were doing the workshop. And by doing that, Gillian got a lot of better understanding about why did we have to ask the participants to build a little duck? What was the meaning? It was the first step, and it was a very interactive to calm all the feelings, to calm all the anxiety, and to demonstrate that everybody can learn at different times, at different space. But at the same time, this enables us to create a climate for learning. And I told you just a couple of minutes ago that some people have abused, because we are academics. Some of my colleagues really have used this. They got the book about Lego serious play, and they think, oh, this is constructivism or constructionist. Oh, I can use this in my teaching. However, I've been trained as a Lego serious play facilitator. And I can guarantee that there are two different areas. The one that use this methodology and write research because they think they can do. And there's a big network of serious play facilitators who have attended Ramsul's workshop. We cried a lot because we really experienced the power of facilitating learning, and at the same time connect with our unconscious behaviors, feelings, emotions. And this was very, very powerful. And that's why I remember with Gillian, I was a little bit worried in case some of our participants could have cried or could have an overreaction. Because when I did in the past, some people had these overreactions. Again, sometimes you are connected with some past experience, and if the past experience are positive, you are quite relaxed. But if they bring you back some memories, those can influence the present and the understanding, and you can have an overreaction. So we wanted to make sure that the methodology that we were using in the workshop enabled them to feel safe, to feel calm, and at the same time to give us those unconscious answers that interested us in terms to understand transport identities and their behaviors. The next one, please. Okay. Now it's Gillian.
Thank you. Thanks, Stefania, for all of that. So anyone in the room who is from a system dynamics background, which I'm assuming the majority of people will be, given this event was organised by the System Dynamics Society Special Interest Group in Transport, you may have already sort of started to come to some conclusions of your own about how this Lego series play method could combine with the system dynamics method of group model building, particularly around the causal loop diagrams. And this is what excited me when, as Stefania said, we were on this course together looking for interdisciplinary projects, that we were talking about our methodologies. I explained the causal loop diagram concepts to Stefania, and we were starting to already see how we could merge the two together, and they could complement each other very well. But I am just going to very briefly explain causal loop diagrams, because I also appreciate there may be people who've come to this event who aren't system dynamics practitioners or are very new to the concept. So just to give an overview of what a causal loop diagram is that we're talking about. So they're part of the methodology of system dynamics, but what we're interested in is capturing mental models of the system that we're researching. So what in particular, we've identified a research question or a problem, and we start to look at what are the variables that exist within that system and how do they interact with each other. And it's important that you actually do this in a setting where you include as many different viewpoints as possible, because people have different views of the system. So that's why we often develop causal loop diagrams through a group model building type workshop or event. And this is where the linkages started to form with the Lego Serious Play method. So the causal loop diagrams themselves, if you're not familiar with them, they consist of various elements, one being what we call I'll just put my pointer on to show you on here. So we have variables. So these are entities that generally they can go up in value or down in value. Links between the variables, which can be a polarity of either positive or negative. A positive polarity meaning that if an increase in one variable will lead to an increase in the connected variable, or a decrease in that variable will lead to a decrease in the connecting variable. And finally, we also have loops. So we're looking for closed feedback loops. And these are what really drive the system behavior, because what we're looking for when we develop these mental models is an understanding of how these systems operate. Because once we understand the structure of a system, we can recognize what is causing behaviors. And so if we're looking to correct problems, say, then we will know what we may need to do to intervene to prevent such problems from happening. So these loops themselves are closed, and again, they can have a polarity as well, which is positive or negative, whether that's a reinforcing effect or whether there would be a balancing effect in the system from that loop. So we're really interested in non-linear feedback occurring over time within causal loop diagrams. So not there's similar methodologies that look at causal diagramming, but it's just in a linear form. And actually the colleague from the School of Medicine who originally was involved in that project does that type of diagramming, and we're going to include that as well. So that may be something interesting to look at in the future. So that was a very quick overview, therefore, of causal loop diagramming for those who aren't aware. But in terms of the workshop itself, I'm going to talk you through the steps that we carried out within the workshop. So as Stefania said, this was originally planned for 2020, but as everyone will know, things had to be halted then. We did look at whether we could do something similar online, sending out the Lego pieces to individuals, but decided that that wouldn't get the full value of what we're trying to do here. So we postponed it until the time that we could actually invite people to come along to the workshop. So we ended up having it in June of this year, and it was a 3-hour workshop that we planned, because this was just a proof of concept that we wanted to try out how the two methods work together. And we had 4 participants within this workshop. Now, we would have ideally liked to have more. We did plan for more, but this was a matter of recruitment methods. We recruited through the university Leeds mailing list systems. The reason that we wanted to keep our participants all based at the University of Leeds and in some academic or related a role within the university was just to limit our set of people who were there, limit the variables between them, and in particular because we're interested in transport, and on top of that sort of transport in terms of the commute, if everyone was commuting to the same place, i.e. to the campus of the University of Leeds, we was again just limiting our variables there for this very simple workshop. So we had 4 people who were able to join us. As it turned out, these were primarily public transport users, which is interesting, though we didn't necessarily recruit it that way. So maybe the results that we've got from them it could be quite different from a pool of people that were primarily car users. And all of these also have the ability to work from home as well. So I think these are important to note in terms of the finding that we actually had. So we combined techniques that's used that are well established within both the Lego series play method and the causal loop diagramming method. So and combined the steps in a way that we felt would complement each other and be able to move our narrative along. So we started off, our first exercise was a Lego series play, and then Stefania referred to this earlier in terms of the building a duck, and the point of this, as Stefania has already suggested, is about getting people into their comfort zone within this Lego workshop, because it's quite a different thing. So everyone is given the same blocks. I think it's 4 or 5 yellow blocks and some red blocks as well, and asked to make a duck. And as you might be able to see from this image, everyone came up with a different representation of what a duck is to them. And I think this just shows that we don't all have to be the same, and actually we're looking for the variations. And this is something important within the group model building as well. We want people's own point of views to come through. Our second step was a causal loop diagramming exercise. So this is fairly standard exercise from the Scriptopedia, if anybody uses that. And these are where we asked the participants to write their hopes and aspirations regarding transport on post-it notes, both pre and post-COVID. So what was important to them at the time. And actually we just looked at hopes. Quite often this is a hopes and fears exercise as well. So people are looking at the negative parts, but just because of the time constraints, we focused on the hopes. So the next step was actually getting into the Lego building, where everyone was asked to use whatever pieces of Lego that they required. And there was an awful lot of bits of Lego, bits that I've never seen before myself, that is available within the Lego series play pack, to build their ideal form of transport. So we've got an example of one here. This is actually somebody sat in a train. They can see outside, there's lots of animals and greenery outside that they can look at in the journey. They've got a lot of baggage space and a lot of space to themselves. And also they've got the drive up here, and not that you could see this so much, but when we were discussing these afterwards, they pointed out the driver was happy in their job and well paid as well. So there's all of these extra dimensions that came in because we were using the Lego play that made people really connect with what was important to them regarding their transport. So the next step, we actually go back to the post-it notes, so this causal loop diagram part of the methodology, where we start to theme them together, these see where the commonalities and the differences were between individuals' different hopes, to see if we could get some sort of group view regarding how transport changed from pre to post-COVID.
5 minutes remaining, Gillian.
Yes?
5 minutes.
5 minutes, okay, I shall rush through the rest, no worries. So finally, we had a combined discussion. So everybody was bringing in parts of their most important parts of their Lego models to build a group model. And so Stefania was leading this discussion, while at the same time, I was working with our themed hopes to build up a causal loop diagram that was representing the discussion in terms of our research question about how behaviours and identities related to transport have changed. So this is the causal loop diagram that was built. So this is part of it. This is the pre-COVID connections that we can see here. And I've just added on there the post-COVID connections that we developed. So now the black, just to give you a clear view, the black variables and links are common to both. The blue are just in the pre-COVID and the red are just in the post-COVID. And what I wanted to point out was some of these interesting feedbacks that we got post-COVID about this. Suddenly there's this value of personal time is so much more important to our individuals because they've had the ability to work from home and they haven't had to commute so much. Now that they do commute, it's much more noticeable to them. And they're much more aware of the different choices that they have available about whether they do need to take this journey or not. Another interesting feedback loop that came out was around this, when you are working from home, you have more excitement about going to see the office, going to see your colleagues in the office. Therefore, the experience of the journey itself isn't as much as a judge as it had been before. We also had some interesting things around the actual environment around the journey that you're taking. So as I pointed out in that Lego piece that I showed in the last slide, what's going on outside the window was as important as what was going inside the actual vehicle as well. We also had a follow-up survey. I'm not going to spend too long on this given the time, but basically people did feel that they became more aware of their transport identity after the workshop because they'd never really thought about it before. So in terms of our research questions, what were our conclusions? In terms of does understanding our transport identity allows us to be more innovative, then it's what we found is it's not about the mode of transport, but the factors that affect these variables that affect our travel comfort that in this particular group became very apparent. And when they are aware of what's important to them, then you are more willing to consider more choices because you're thinking it in terms of what can that give me in terms of these variables that are important. And sort of linked to this, how did the disruption of COVID-19 change these identities? What became apparent to us is that actually you've got this more conscious control of not only how to travel, but also when and where you travel. You suddenly feel like you've got more options that you want to consider within there. So they feel like the transport identities might be much more broader post-COVID because people have opened their minds up to more innovative choices. And then finally, just some general thoughts. So reflecting back on what Stefania was saying about our learning experience as researchers, we've really found out that because we kept our conversations going and kept reflecting back on each other's methods and discussing things, that we were able to really push this project forward, and that we took an equal ownership between the two of us. And that was a really important thing and I think as well because of the nature of the two types of methods that we're blending, I think we really did need to get quite deeply involved with that and to be able to be transparent to each other about what was and wasn't working. We do think there is potential in this method, taking it forward, and we'd very much like to do that. It still needs work. We've got lots of ideas on what didn't work on the day in terms of the structure, and logistics, even things like that, on how these work. I'm sure anyone who's held just a single workshop would be aware of that. So we would like to take this forward. Personally, I still want to think about it in the transport sense, but it can be used with any problem, as can Lego series player or causal loop diagrams. So hopefully there's much more to come on this, and we've given you a taster of what the methodology could look like and our experiences in developing a new methodology that could contribute to system dynamics. And we do have references there, and we'll be happy to share these slides if people are interested. Thank you.
Thank you, Gillian and Stefania. Yes, I was muted. So yeah, it's very interesting actually. Also, both the methodology and also the topic of interest. I think perhaps, if I may, to start off, the discussion with a question actually. Given you actually exploring, both using this Lego play and also the CLD as a proof of concept, right? Do you observe actually how the physical object, that is the Lego play, and the abstract object within the CLD, how do they actually influence each other, or affecting each other? I think you touched upon it. Maybe if you could give us more detail on that.
Yeah, I'm happy to start on this one. I think it's a good question, that, because it's one thing that we've certainly come across as ourselves. But I think fundamentally, one thing that with the Lego blocks, because even though it's a physical object and you're asked to build something physical, it can be quite theoretical in itself. So in terms of our workshop, to build your ideal form of transport, some people really thought outside the box with that. And like I said, with because you describe it afterwards as well, and Stefania, as the facilitator, asked some very probing question on even what does the meaning of this color of block that you've chosen for there, why have you chosen to put this in this particular position, means that you're really going much deeper, and you've got that connection, and that links back to with these sort of less physical concepts and non-empirical variables that we might have within causal loop diagrams, to help people really dig down to what really they are trying to express, which sometimes is the problem with causal loop diagrams. You'll put a variable in and not everyone really understands what it means.
That's definitely something I have found in the past. Anything to add to that, Stefania?
Yeah, so what we were trying to do is a sort of narrative identity. So we wanted to build a nice climate to understand the narrative, to really try to get the answers to the questions that we posed. That's the only thing. And that's why we have to experience first, and let them do, let them building, and then go to the research questions that we wanted. We couldn't have done in a very, very fast way, and that's why 3 hours and 4 people are enough. It is enough in terms of the methodology.
Thank you. So I'm open to the floor. I think one question is this work published? I think is work in progress, right, Gillian?
Yes, but ideally we'd like to publish. It's a matter of finding the time, and I think we're also looking at whether we want to carry out another one first for more robust results. But hopefully something in the pipeline.
Yeah, and to follow up from Khalid as well. How do you prepare people pre-workshop? Do you have any preparation on that? Or do you send them any material or anything before the workshop?
So can I start with the Lego series, please, and then you follow up, Gillian? So sometimes if you do a Lego series place with an online setting, you can send the material before to the people, or you can bring it to them. But we intentionally didn't want to do that, because you lose the momentum, because you are going to have people in different spaces. What we wanted, we waited, and it was very painful for us to take this decision. We wanted people physically in the same space and create these vibes, these positive vibes. What we have done in terms of the preparation was prepare us. So Gillian and I, we went to the same room to test ourselves, to try the Lego series play. So we kind of did everything to be secure that we would have done in the same way. and it worked. It's a kind of, and then Gillian started to do the causal loop methodology, and at that stage the participants were really active, were really, the 3 hours went so well at the end. And then they asked, oh, can you please let us know? We are going to send you the survey. But they say, yes, we enjoyed. That's, Gillian, what do you think?
Yeah, in terms of preparation, we didn't expect anyone to have pre-knowledge of Lego series play or causal loop diagrams or system dynamics, quite purposefully. And we did, at the very start of the workshop, we gave an introduction, which very similar to the background that we've just given now on Lego series play and transport identities and innovation theory, and causal loop diagrams, etc. So just, I think it was just about a 10-minute presentation at the start, just to give them the background to it. So and because it was quite self-selecting, as I said, we sent an invite out to the university staff that was basically, do you like Lego and do you use transport? Would you like to be in this workshop? So we kept it quite vague, because we wanted there to be no pressure on the participants to feel like they were expected to provide something or to bring something to the table.
I think the question by Hannah also quite interesting. I mean, if you would like to ask it yourself, please feel free to switch on the mic, and otherwise I'm happy to read it out for you.
Hi, yeah, thank you. Can you hear me okay, Gillian?
Yes, thanks. Hi, Hannah.
Hi there. I think that, so first of all, kudos to you and Stefania. This is really exciting and beautiful work, and I would love to get to build ducks in a workshop. And I would also love to build the model of the sort of like my dreams for riding in a train. But I have done exercises like this before, not as cool as yours. And what I found is that as a participant, I get sort of into it. I mean, it's fun to build it. It's fun to play with the Legos. It wasn't Legos. We were doing it with sketching. And you kind of get into the method as art or expression. But if you asked me, are those actually things you use for determining your choice set, your time of day, your trip, your mode? I would say, well, not really. They were sort of things I was playing with in the workshop. So I guess the question is, how do you control for that? Like, I don't know if it is actually part of my back conscious story in making the decisions, or if it really is something I would just be playing with in the workshop. Did you think about that?
Yeah, I think that's definitely something that we found when we did our pre-test between the two of us to see whether it worked properly. And we made some tweaks at that point that we realized we weren't actually answering the question that we were asking. I think we had a slightly different question for the, well, not the question, but direction. Rather than it was build your ideal form of transport, I think it was more about a memory of represent your favorite travel experience, I think, something like that. And we realized that wasn't really addressing what we were asking. So a lot of thought has to go into exactly getting the question right for the answers that you're looking for. In terms of drawing these elements out, I think that's what came of the discussions afterwards. So the fun part is the building stuff, which people just get on with it, really. So we give half an hour. I don't think people even really chatted to each other much, because people were intense choosing their blocks and putting everything together. And I think we had some teas and coffees as well that people had while they were getting on with it. But it's actually the discussion afterwards that brings all of these latent things out that we were interested in identifying. And then, so that's different skills as well, of the facilitation that Stefania was providing. And at the same time, when I was up at the whiteboard trying to capture these within a causal loop diagram and reflecting back to the group, is this what you were meaning at this point?
Great. So it's not, you're careful to sort of structure it so it's not in a vacuum, and to see what people really care about.
Yes, definitely. And to pilot it to yourselves, see if it makes sense when you're actually there doing it.
Thank you very much. Very nice work.
Thanks, Anna.
Can we go next to Dimitris? I mean, if you like to ask that question yourself. Sorry to skip you earlier.
Sure, no problem. And thanks for the interesting presentation, Gillian and Stefania. I think it's clear that you have better insights through your suggested method. What I'm wondering is whether you can have a kind of more robust examination of the validity of the method through, for example, a controlled experiment, so you can, in a way, control things like the one asked before or other things that could pop up during the process and could influence the, and actually
Yes, I agree. Thanks for that, Demetrius.
Yeah.
This is probably something that we were concerned about originally, was how robust this is, especially because we had.
I think Gillian froze. Maybe Stefani, when she come back, maybe if you can unmute.
Just the first
She's
attempt,
back.
and
Sorry,
we feel like
Gillian, we lost you for a few minutes.
Oh no,
yeah.
Sorry.
That's fine. Yeah, can you say what you have said again? Sorry.
Let's start from the start again. Sorry about that.
No.
And let's hope that I stay on board. What did I say? That's a good question. Yeah. So yeah,
Control,
this was something that we were concerned about, and it's one of the things that's holding us back from publication at the moment, in terms of if it is robust enough, if just having the 4 people and just the one workshop is enough to say that this method would be valid, and to really get out what we think is the potential of combining these, especially on top of either of the methods. Why should you use both of them together rather than either of the methods separately? So really going forward, we would very much like to trial it again in different settings, as you suggest, maybe with different controls in place. But it's a matter of going forward, having the time and getting some funding to be able to do that, I'm afraid.
Thank you. Yep. Then the next one is by Maha Atia.
Hi, thank you so much. It's a very interesting approach. I was just more wondering, how would it be if decision makers or practitioners played the game or played this approach? Because with people, they can really go outside of the box, imagine what they want to have. But then if I'm a decision maker, I would more think of the policies, the boundaries. I will be more bounded with this. So do you think this still can work with decision makers, or that's not the scope?
I think that's a good question, actually, when people aren't maybe thinking of themselves as individuals. So I'd like to pass this one on to Stefania.
Yes, so the best answer is to have a very strong plan of what you want to involve. Because, for example, a lot of other colleagues who have done something similar, they figured out that the policymaker really like, these funny things of interacting with people. But if you really want to do, you should organize the same questions to different stakeholders and have a plan about how to, at the end, bring all together in the same table different stakeholders and see the differences. One of the key elements was Gillian's expertise in managing all the process and all the logistics. While from my expertise, this method is rooted in the theory of chaos. And in the theory of chaos, that's why, yes, you need to have a plan, but you don't have to have a plan. You need to have a plan in terms of the question you're going to ask, test how the process is going to work, but you also need to have an holistic approach, because people can go wild. People can go out of the box. Yes, and this is important because they can connect with these subconscious behaviors and really tell you what is the innovation that you need to bring into the debate. So I don't know if I address your question, but you need to have a balance between, organize yourself, managing, bring different stakeholders, other practitioners. They've been using this, again, is what questions you pose. Because the process is more or less, when you get it once, you can, improve it, especially the Lego serious play. But the questions, that's why we have to pre-test ourselves. We have to change the questions in order to facilitate for the participants what was the purpose of being there for 3 hours and what they could get out of it. And this, you know, feeling with the hands, really, there's a strong connection to the nerve systems, to the head. That's why, you know, it was good for them as an experience, but also in terms of, you know, practitioners, policymakers, it's difficult to measure some element of it, but when they see the differences, so for example, you want to bring something new in the community, those two methodologies enrich a lot of meanings and understanding about a particular topic. So yeah, that would be my answer. I hope.
Yeah, you answered it. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Before we go to the last question, if there's any, I just want to post this link. So instead of distract you by it, there's a link to join the SIG here. So please join, because I think Gillian and Stefania will post the presentation there as well. And also there's a survey form. We'll be grateful for you to fill that in so that we can improve for the next time. So let's go to the final question, if there's any. Oh, what would you change if you do it again?
That's there's lots of things we could change. I think for me, I think it would have to be a full day workshop to really get the most out of both methods. I mean, you could argue for either method, you could just spend the whole day on just that, but to really explore it, I think need more time. That would be the main point for me. But also there'd be something around the recruitment, making sure that we've got the right people in the room for the questions that we're asking.
And Stefania?
For me, yes, I agree with Gillian about more time, because we tried to use the Lego serious plays and the causal diagram, and then we went back to the Lego serious play, and some of them, they wanted to continue to play with the Legos. So maybe a slightly different structure, but the problem was time. So we definitely needed more time to do it. Probably what I would change is to be more organized. As you have seen, I'm always struggle with technology. But to be honest with you, it's such a pleasure to work with Gillian. And for me, she introduced me this transport research group, and we kept the conversation, you know, even if there was something unclear, we kept the conversation. We really wanted to learn how those two things could work together. What I will do differently, start with Gillian from the beginning. And because at the beginning we were 4 people, 4 different ideas, 4 different methodologies, and I was so cross, and Gillian was absolutely one of the best, probably the best person I've been working with to, you know, calm my Italian vibes and focus on the project, you know, say, okay. And then those people, especially one, unfortunately, she couldn't join. And then it was the moment where Gillian and I were bonded. We were asked, so what do we do? Shall we go or shall we stay? We went, and it was fantastic. We presented this to the British Academy of Management, to the Transport Conference. We are here with you today. We want to get published. We want to get other fundings. You know, it wasn't easy as a process, but highly recommended. And it's such a great project. We do believe in that.
Thank you very much, Gillian and Stefania. We really, you really wonderfully kick off our T6 lecture series this year, which is focusing on qualitative modeling as a participatory approach to transport system analysis. So we still have much to come. You know, this is the first of the 4. We have 3 more to come, which the next one is on December 13, the same time. The topic to be confirmed in the coming mail. So I would like to thank the speaker again, and also the participants who are here making us a really lively discussion today. So I wish you a joyful day onward. And thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. And if anyone wants to contact us, we'd love to talk about this more as well.
Yes. Gillian, can we take a